pretty excited for this next panel, or actually our starting panel. I'm a big fan of the show. How many of you guys are fans of Superman and Lois? Let's hear it, come on. All right, so just a few housekeeping things. Please don't record footage. Again, we want to make sure the studios continue to bring it, so let's not record it. And let's get right into it. Let's get Saturday started. So with that, it is my pleasure to bring out the moderator for this panel, Mr. Damian Holbrook.
Hello, Hall H, how you doing? All right, so I've been noticing Comic-Con is back, right? Like, this is better than ever this year. And I am so thrilled to be out here in Hall H giving the flowers to a show that, 3 years ago, the CW Network, Warner Brothers TV, Greg Berlanti Productions, and the 4 people that you're going to see come up here today made the heroic choice to ground Superman. We had seen the classic one, we've seen the comedic Lois and Clark one, the Routh one, the gritty Cavill one, we also got a peek at the Nicolas Cage one, several animated ones, but we never saw the most famous alien on the planet as a human until this show. And my God, did they get it right. Beautifully filmed, so wonderfully written, and perfectly cast. Superman and Lois has not only given this generation a Kent family to call their own, but it also added a new layer of dramatic tone to the Arrowverse at the time, and it is also one of the best TV shows, period. It had debuted during COVID, and then ran through last year's actors and writers strikes. So Superman and Lois, the show, has never gotten to get the San Diego Comic-Con love until today. So let's fix that. Let's have a look at it first, and then I'm going to bring out the people that you are going to give some love to. So let's look at this trailer. Great honor to bring out Todd Helbing, executive producer. Tyler Hoechlin, our Clark Kent. Elizabeth, also known as Bitsy Todd, our Lois Lane. And Brent Fletcher, executive producer. This has been a spectacular run. We've got so much to talk about. Todd, when this all started, when you went and first talked to Greg Berlanti, you asked him, how do you do Superman differently? What was his answer?
Well, what the show became, we make it about family.
And where did you take it from there? Because you can do family in so many different ways.
Well, maybe we should tell the story. Like, originally when Greg called me, I said no. It's like, you have Greg Berlanti calling, and it's Superman. You don't want to mess up Superman. So I'm like, oof, I don't know. I'm kind of burnt out. And then he's like, well, look, we just make it about family. And I thought about it. And I'm like, that's the best way to do Superman. It's, we can. If he's married to Lois Lane and has kids, you can get into the teenage drama, and you can put Superman in situations that he can't just use his powers to get out of. And so that's what we really leaned into. I think last year was a great example when Lois had breast cancer, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? He's just a loving husband. And so we just thought about all those moments and did it as much as we could.
So, because the idea was more Friday Night Lights than Friday Night Tights.
Friday Night Tights, yeah.
But that sort of tone relies on two things: writing and acting. Because if you can't pull off that combination, you're going to miss the mark. When did you know? And Brent, you can also get in on this. When did you know that Tyler and Bitsy were ready for such a shift into that kind of storytelling versus what they'd already done in the Arrowverse?
I mean, for me, it was when we first sat down at dinner. I obviously was a big fan of both of them. I wasn't there when to see Tyler. I don't you didn't audition, did you? No. But I saw Bitsy audition, and
Sorry.
no, so
I auditioned.
but it was like Bits comes on, and you see her audition. It's like that's Lois Lane in 2 seconds, you know. So that was never a question I knew. But when we sat down the first time and had dinner, and I was walking them through what I thought the show was supposed to be, and they were fully on board, and I could just tell like they also had chemistry, like you know, it was real, it was genuine. Yeah.
The first day I met Tyler, we were shooting The Flash, we were shooting Elseworlds, and I'm on my way to set. I'm 6 months pregnant, and all I remember thinking was, dear God, I hope this guy is not a douchebag. Because we had never met, and I was also hoping for like great chemistry, and then just like the instant.
She was so disappointed when she got there.
No, it was just magical, and we got so lucky. And I remember going to set that day being so nervous, like this really needs to work, because I had been told ahead of time that there was a small chance that if the fans really liked me and Tyler together, that it was possible that they would give us our own show. So I was like, I really hope this works, but I don't know about this guy. And it worked out well.
Brent, when did you start? Because you've been with the show since the pilot.
Yeah.
When did you start to see that chemistry, that personal connection between Bitsy and Tyler that you guys knew you could start writing to?
I mean, I think from the pilot, you know, the pilot is so strong. When that came in, all doubts were erased. And then for us, it was a little bit trying to make them, you know, you say Friday Night Lights, trying to make them the couple that's the best couple on television, you know? And every time we wrote something to that, they delivered, you know? So it was like, oh, okay, we can add this to this and this to this, and it just kept improving. And I honestly believe to this day, they're the best couple on television right now.
Absolutely.
It's now.
And like honestly, I'm 150 years old. I've seen a lot of Lois and Superman pairings, and first of all, you look at Tyler Hoechlin and you're like, oh yes, he was genetically modified to play Superman. Like that kid probably had a cake with his diapers. But watching you two and the way Lois was established in that pilot of getting that essence of who Lois Lane has always been. When we started to watch it, I was like, oh, and the cool thing is, again, for different ages, this is a Lois and Superman that we will always hold on to. This is like a generation's Lois and Clark, you know, and it is, it's been beautiful to watch because you've not only given them high drama stuff to do and great action stuff, but you've also given us a lot of levity and a lot of romance. When did that start to start to gel and be like, oh, this can be parents who also are very in love with each other?
I think that barn scene, maybe episode 4 of the first season, you know, it was really sweet and it was kind of sexy, and we were like, we're gonna keep doing that. You're like, more of that, please.
And then there was that great episode, I think it was Greg's 11, the whole flashback episode where they kind of meet and start falling in love. That was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that scene at the Daily Planet where you hit on him for the first time. Like, oh yeah, and then you did this little thing.
Yeah.
You sat down, like, oh, that was great.
So for Tyler and Bitsy, what did you guys think after the Elseworld stuff? And they said to you, hey, if this show goes, they're going to be dealing with real life problems. Were you like, that's a tough sell?
That was what sold us on it. We were sold on the sort of like Friday Night Tights, which I've never heard and I love. The Friday Night Lights was a superhero element, but what we kept hearing from Berlanti and from Todd was it's going to be very grounded, and it's really a show primarily about family dynamics with, you know, Superman and Lois Lane, of course, being these iconic characters, but that it was going to be grounded and it wasn't going to feel, you know, not like highfalutin, but just grounded.
Tyler, what about you? Because this was really one of the first times you got to play like a full grown-up. Because you literally just played a teen.
I literally never thought about that until you said that.
Like you went from teen to
yeah.
father of teen.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it was a bit of a jump. I mean, I do remember
Teen to father of teen.
Yeah, seriously, like overnight. No, I think for me it was more. I remember when even before Todd and I talked, when Greg and I were talking, I think it was just I was at a place in life where I wanted I wanted to do a show that focused on what I was feeling at that point in my life was the most important thing, which was family. I'd gone through that phase in my life where, like, you know, been away from home and kind of like seeking my own stuff and figuring out who I am. And I was like, okay, now I'm coming back to that, like, family is the core and that's what's the most important thing. And so I think it just kind of organically lined up with where I was at in life. And yeah, maybe it was a few years early for me to have teenagers in my own life, but still I think to tell that story and to make it about family was a really, I don't know, fortuitous thing for just where I was personally. It felt like, yeah, this is what I want to emphasize right now. If there's a story that we're going to be telling, I'd like to be telling the importance of this. So
The show was renewed after one episode. What was it like on set that day?
we were probably taking a COVID test. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you watch Lee Tulloch-Krieger, Gavin Southers, who's our DP, they did episode 1 and episode 2, and Lee did such a phenomenal job establishing the look of the show with these sort of muted, golden, warm colors and shooting in wide format. I mean, it looked so cinematic. It looked like a movie, and I was so proud when I saw them, and I just honestly wasn't surprised. I think we all did a really good job, and you could tell that it was different.
Right.
Sort of,
It looked different from anything that was airing on that
Right.
network at the time. The color saturate, like, it was,
Yeah.
and also, so let's talk about that, because the visual language of the show was really important to keeping the tone right and keeping it grounded. What were the conversations with, you know, the network and the production stuff about, we're going to make this look very different from your other superhero shows?
Yeah, it started when I first sat down with Lee. I was like, look, I think, you know, the look should be a little bit different, a little bit more Terrence Malick, you know? So it's Kansas, it's summer, even though we shot in Vancouver in the winter.
Thanks.
And Lee was like 1,000% in, and he, you know, he's so visually astute. He's exceptionally good at that, and so all the DPs that he interviewed, and Gavin came on, and there's still to this day, or not now, but up until we wrapped, there was in the writer's office, there were all the analogs, the shows, and then so Lee is just a very passionate, convincing person. So he's like, I'm gonna call Mark Pedowitz and I'm gonna ask him, and you know, and Mark was so awesome and huge fan and very supportive, and was like, yeah, if you guys think this is the best thing to do, then let's do it.
One of the show's greatest assets was how you put this family together, and you actually told stories that you meet deep into an episode and forget, oh, he's an alien and he's got superpowers, because we were so wrapped up and caught up in the family dynamic. Who was the one that kind of like kept the balance of, you know, like spectacle and emotional?
I mean, I think that was all of us, the whole writing staff. I think, you know, we all just, from day one, it was very clear from the pilot and from the second episode of what the show was going to be and what it needed to be. And so it was always the conversations we had. Some people may not want to hear this, but it was like the Superman, the spectacle was the least important. But that was also for being a show on the CW, you know, we don't have millions and millions and millions of dollars an episode to spend in visual effects, so we had to really dial it in and make those moments important.
Yeah. Yet you made it look like you had millions and millions of dollars for
That's
special
because,
effects.
and we always make sure, and I actually said, someone on Twitter was like, at the very beginning, season 1, we're like, well, they're doing this show on an HBO Max budget. I'm like, no, we're not. Matt Gore and the VFX team is doing this, like, they just loved the show so much. They made it look like we had a massive budget, but they never did. And so kudos to them for working so hard and doing such a beautiful job with VFX.
100%. Because it was mind-blowing at times. Because like, you'd have episodes that weren't season finales that clearly had that.
Like, some of them look better than movies.
Honestly,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think I would just to speak to that, our whole crew had buy-in as well. You know, you get kind of one shot to do Superman. And so everybody felt honored to do it and kind of got the vision that we had for it. And so even when things got taken away from us, we had a core group of people that were kind of fighting the same fight. And I think you see that on the screen. I think that's how we got there.
Oh, so the first episode they're back with you guys, there is a sequence where I'm like, I'm sorry, did I pay $16.50 to see this in IMAX? It is insane. And I'm like, how is this on the, like, network television? Once it was revealed, once you got to reveal that the show actually wasn't set in the universe of the Arrowverse, that it wasn't that Prime Earth, how much did that free you up to not be beholden to what had come before?
I mean, a lot, actually. It was, you know, like, we talked about this a little bit before in some interviews, but, you know, the intention, like, we were going to do crossovers, and COVID just threw a wrench in everything. And the further along we got, the less organic it was going to be. It was going to feel weirder to have, you know, Grant show up than not have Grant show up, and not talk about any of these characters, Supergirl, Flash. And so I think we didn't really change that much, but we just leaned into, okay, everybody knows now in the audience, you know, and hopefully they accept it in a way that we had to, that we were forced to, right? And then we just go on.
Because you would have had to kind of like Superman and Lois, the Flash, or Supergirl. Like they'd have to show up and be like, why are all the lights muted? And why aren't there? Where's there's just like empty warehouses for us to fight in? Tyler, I know you have been asked this a million times, but I need, because you know we never got panels with you for this. Can you walk us through the process of being fitted for a Superman suit?
It's his favorite.
Which one? Well, actually, I want to say one thing because it's kind of funny you say that. So, I realized the other day, the only time I've been here for Superman was 8 years ago, I think, before I'd even shot anything. So, this is like a real bookend for me, which is kind of weird because I did this before I did anything, and now after we've done everything. So, kind of crazy. Those are the two occasions we've been here for that. But for the suit, it's very detailed. You know, if you've ever been measured for like a real suit, you know, they do like the down the arm and the thing. There's like 20 other measurements I didn't know about, which is like this segment, then this segment, then that segment. Like it's so precise. But I mean, our costume department, Kat, they did such a great job. You know, each time we did something new and different with the suit, they were phenomenal. And so it was very cool. I know that the response to, you know, every time we would put one out, I think was usually very, very positive. It's never always going to be entirely positive. I think we know that with the genre. So we take more than 50% positive as a very big win. So
There is a very, very cool detail on the suit for season 4 that I hope people don't miss. Keep an eye out for a very cool detail.
Okay. How many pieces is it?
Depends. The first one was 1. And then it's, well, I think the first 2 were 1 piece, and then eventually we tried, there's a lot of practical fighting and stunts that we do in the suit, and so, you know, over time, you know, having a zipper in the back and like a 1-piece thing, any kind of, you know, rotation and things like that start to get a little bit constricted, so we tried to evolve it over time to make it a little bit more functional for the fight sequences and things like that, so it's evolved over the season.
I just want to say one thing about, so this guy, like, we're hanging him from wires. He's in like undersuits that are very restrictive, and he's being hung, and he never complains once ever. He talks about us about, hey, maybe we can loosen it up a little bit here because it's hurting my shoulders. And on top of that, you know, he's working 12-hour days, and then he goes and works out and gets super ripped. And so it's like, I just wanted to say, like, this guy was amazing the whole time, and it was super appreciated.
All right. Bitsy, we once talked about how one of Lois's greatest strengths is that she is okay with being vulnerable. She is not completely, like, she is okay with being open. And we saw that over and over again. Both she and Clark, very early on, accepted that they weren't killing it as parents. You guys, like, you had some problems. But how do you think the past 3 seasons have changed her?
Before I answer that question, I do want to just say thank you to everyone who's in the audience. I saw the lines. It's hot. This is my 8th Comic-Con. I love genre fans. You're so passionate, you're so astute and loyal, and I appreciate you being... As far as the vulnerability, I mean, who here has seen the Brene Brown thing on how vulnerability is actually a strength? Yeah. And I kind of went into it being like, Lois isn't vulnerable. She's so determined and fierce and, just, pursuit of truth no matter what. And then the writing starts coming in, and then they wrote this episode, season 1, where Lois is talking about having had a very late-term miscarriage. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're going there. Okay. And the response to both that and the cancer storyline was so, for the most part, really positive. I know there were some fans who were like, it's too vulnerable, but I think at the end of the day, like, she's human and she's going through a lot, and she has 2 hormonal teenagers who are acting out all the time, and a husband who's like, where is he now? What's he up to now? Is he alive? Is he dead? I've got a lot going on. Over the course of the season, I think once the cancer storyline, because Todd gave me inflammatory breast cancer, which is the most deadly and aggressive. He could have given me, a different kind of breast cancer, but no. Gives me the worst. Once that entered into the equation, I was like, oh, I gotta go there. And so when, before I started shooting, I interviewed and spoke to, I was so grateful. There was a very famous oncologist and cancer surgeon named Dr. Christy Funk, and she put me in touch with a bunch of women, and I talked to so many of them, and I was so inspired by their stories, these survivors, and many of them who were still going through it, and a lot of them were parents. And there was this one woman, Tiffany, who lives in Washington, and she found out, she was breastfeeding her 5-month-old. She had 3 kids. She squeezed her boob to see how much milk do I have today, found a lump. And she was telling me that while she was going through chemotherapy, she would literally climb up the stairs on her stomach to get to put her kids down. And that just was so real, and that kind of was my decision. We talked a lot. I was like, I'm gonna shave my head. Can I shave my head? And they're like, no. So the solution was, you'll see at the beginning of season 3, we added a ton of extensions, and then as Lois is going through chemo, the extensions would start getting pulled out slowly, and she had the cold cap on. It was just to help hair loss. And then just kind of straggly hair. But I made it clear, I was like, we're gonna do this. This can't be like a pretty version of cancer. It needs to be raw and vulnerable and a little ugly, like cancer is.
Bitsy killed it. Everything that we asked, she nailed. B, credit where credit's due. It was Brent's idea.
Okay, so I wanted to know what inspired you to tell that story at that point.
It was a couple of things. Just every family's been touched by it. My mom had breast cancer, but it was not as severe as Lois's, and it was telling real stories that matter. I felt like we worked with Bitsy for 3 years. You don't have a better actress to play a role like that, and to not have, in a world of genre where there are magic crystals that can solve anything, to play it straight the whole time and never to give a superhero solve to it, and to never drop it. You're gonna see it in 4th season. We made a pledge to Bitsy, and she made the same pledge back to us, so we're never gonna let that story drop as long as the show was on the air, and we pay it off at the end. We pay it off the whole time we're there, and I just felt like something like that is an opportunity for a show like ours to give something big, worthwhile to the audience.
Because what you did was, you did what Superman does, and you gave hope.
Yeah.
And the scene, who had the idea to have Clark learn about it while he's floating in the air at the rooftop? Because that was such a beautiful idea of this woman telling him this man who is supposed to be impervious, being told that there is the one thing he can't save, and that's the woman he loves the most.
I think that was Todd. I think that was me. I don't know. All that stuff, you have a writing team that comes in every day and pitches a lot of ideas, and so it's hard to take credit for one thing or not. It was a group effort, 4 seasons. Our staff was amazing. and so it's we all take credit for that.
Tyler and Missy, can you talk about what that storyline meant for you as both actors and as friends?
It was definitely, we were very much in it together for that third season. I think first season we shot during all the COVID stuff, and so that was its own very kind of extreme situation. Second season still felt a little restricted in those areas, and so this was like the first season we were coming into where it felt a little bit of normalcy, and then we had this storyline to go through, and it was a very heavy season. But thankfully, I'll be genuine. Mitzi and I do love each other very much, and we do get along great. So to go through it together was very special. I can't imagine doing it with anybody else. So thank you. She did such a great job in that, and so really I just got to react to what she was doing a lot. But I think we both felt similar in the sense of, are fans going to respond to this? Is what they want to see? And I will say I've had a lot of really great interaction with fans post that storyline. And I think one of the coolest things that I was able to take from that is people don't want to feel alone. And so to see characters that mean a lot to them going through something that they can connect with and feel like I'm not the only one in this place or going through this situation, I think was a really special thing for us to do. And I'm very grateful that these guys, had the guts to go ahead and do that storyline. So
It was really touching too, and he said a lot. So I'll keep this short. But there's a scene where Lois is getting weaker and weaker, and Tyler has to shampoo and wash my hair, and that's what it looks like. I mean, that's some of the stories that I've heard. It's like that's what it ends up looking like taking your loved one to the bathroom and taking care of them and washing their hair and everything. And I just thought there were a lot of poignant moments of intimacy where you really feel like he could lose her,
I feel also, especially in those scenes and the way it all resolved, or just got us to where we were at the end of season 3, is her fight and her resilience, her faith in her family, almost leveled her up to a superhero in her own right.
Well, I've always kind of approached Lois as being a superhero just without the powers. I've always said this a million times. I'm forever grateful to have played this role because she's such an icon and has remained such an icon for as long as he has, because she was introduced in 1938 along with Superman in Action Comics #1, and that was a period in history where women weren't like career women, and you have this woman who's a ball buster and fierce and determined and on many levels more powerful and smarter than a lot of the guys she was working with, and so she was such a good role model for women and men.
And now, Mom, let's talk about the kids. When you were building the rest of the family, what was that like? How many submissions did you get? What were you looking for? Because these kids have to be a reflection of Clark and Lois.
Yeah, the search was a lot of fun actually, because there were so many talented people that we came across and that read for us, and they all brought something unique to it. But and then when we did some tests with Jordan Elsass and
we did chemistry reads. Ty and I did chemistry reads with the actors for Jordan, and then I flew in for that, and then I flew back down to do chemistry read with Jordan. You couldn't make it, for the Jonathan role, and Jordan Elsass was great, Alex was great. That was fun.
Yeah, I think like the characteristics we were looking for was somebody as feisty, or somebody that represented her Lois without powers, and somebody that represented, it's kind of like we were flipping it between one son powers, but yeah.
And then Michael came in for the
Michael Bishop,
right? And he came in perfectly. A different energy, but also still fits within, like, you feel like, oh yeah, he would have been in this family too.
Yeah, and kudos to him, because he had it's such a unique situation to walk into.
Yeah.
And I think Tyler, you had a nice conversation with him. Like, we all talked to him different ways, but he just had to do his thing.
and also kudos to David Rappaport, our cast director. He's cast so many of all of your favorite shows, but also apparently Michael Bishop had come close in the first go round. Yeah, so he was already sort of in the mix, and then I know he literally we came in, we did chemistry reads. I think there were 3 finalists, and he had flown in from Australia, and it was pretty clear that it was going to be Michael. But he like had a return ticket to Australia, and we started filming. I'm not even without exaggerating, something like 4 or 5 days later, and they just said, "Okay, so you're staying. You can't leave. You have wardrobe fittings. You're going to start shooting in like 4 or 5 days. You got the port. You're staying." He's like, "What?" Yeah, like yay, but also what? Yeah.
I hope he packed heavily.
He did not.
No, yeah. So, how many people on the show or crew have asked or gotten to like fly? Like, have people like stepped in and been like, "Oh,
That is
dude,
such a liability.
I think we actually no. Didn't we fly Bruno? I think we did. I think we flew one cast member on the last season, or crew member on the last season.
That's it?
I think we did. I think we.
There's not like
I don't know
fly
if there's
day for
photographic
this
evidence of this. I just know that I walked. It was a green screen day, and I walked onto set to get pinned in. And I just remember everybody cheering on the way in. I'm like, that's unusual. They don't like me that much. And so I turned the corner, like everybody's like cheering, like, "Yeah, Bruno!" And he looked like he had just pulled a session on the wires. Yeah.
Honestly, I would, like, if I was on that set, I would every day be like, "You gotta let us fly. Let us fly."
I was really debating as like a rap prank on Bitsy, getting these guys to write a scene into an episode that just went to Bitsy that showed Lois flying.
I wouldn't have believed it.
And I was gonna make it like a dream sequence, and I really wanted to see if we could just get her on the wires, and
I
then just
think-
have everybody leave and just leave her hanging. Yes.
I think they realized what a liability I would be for Warner Brothers on the wires on day 2 of filming the pilot,
That's also
when I
true.
walked down the Kent farmhouse and immediately tripped and fell into a muddy puddle. And then they're like, "Okay, ixnay on the wires."
She also almost fell off this chair 10 minutes ago, and if none of you saw it, I'm gonna call it out right now.
Did you guys ever get to fly? Like, I feel like like you guys should have to, so you understand what you're putting the
We
action.
did not.
You know, like,
Yeah,
because
that's a
we've
good
all
idea.
heard the horror
Yeah.
stories.
No, but I distinctly remember when we were shooting the pilots, like, okay, Rob Hader, our stunt master, he was like, "Hey, okay, so we're gonna do all the stunts the first 3 days." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And then Louis Melito, producer, was like, "That's a bad idea. You're gonna, like, Tyler's gonna hate being hung the rest of the series." But that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we never, as I said, never complained about it.
Well, let's talk about season 4,
Yeah.
because it is still a rarity that shows get to come in for a landing on their own terms. So you were given the runway. How did you approach, what you want to do with this final story?
Well, with terror at first, because we had 10 episodes to kind of wrap the thing up. But Todd and I met 2 weeks before we got the writers back together, and we had an idea for the end of the show, and we knew what the beginning of the season was going to be, and we just really boogied on it, and we're kind of surprised by how much story was coming loose pretty fast. All of a sudden a lot of the restrictor plates were off because we didn't have to worry about carrying stuff for future seasons. We could do something and live with it because there would only be 4 episodes left. And so we felt all of a sudden we were like, "Oh wow, that's a big epic moment. That's iconic," And every episode had something that we got really excited about. And by the end of it, we got to episode 10 and we're really happy with the landing, and
Yeah, and it's obviously, if we had our druthers, we would have gone for 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
whatever. But in a lot of ways, knowing that this was the last season, it was a blessing, because we're one of the only Superman live action properties that knew that they were going to end. Everybody else just got canceled or it ended for whatever reason. So in that way, it really opened up, story-wise, a lot of options for us.
I know that everyone's bummed that we only went 4 seasons, but I do want to just say, reiterate, we are grateful that we were given a chance to wrap up this series. And also, I know, I'm online, I've seen a lot of I trust James Gunn and Peter Safran. I know them they're great guys, and I trust that whatever vision they're enacting right now for the DC universe going forward is going to be awesome.
Right. Got an endorsement from Lois Lane. Oh, did you guys ever hear from anyone who has played these characters before? Like, did you ever get like words of wisdom from somebody who'd been one of these characters?
We both avoided watching any other iteration. I'd only seen one of the Donner films with Margot Kidder, and then as soon as I got the role, I'm like, that's it. I don't want to be influenced by anyone else. Yeah.
No, I'd run into like Tom Welling and Brandon at other Comic Cons and things like that, but never really exchanged any kind of words of wisdom or the way you played it or things like that. I think for me it was always important to commit to the idea of who I thought he was, without any outside influence. And so I kind of left it to Todd and to Brent and some other people to if there was ever something that they wanted to communicate, that we have those conversations. But otherwise, I was just going to kind of continue forward with the way that I saw him from day one.
And also, we haven't seen live action as parents and parents to teenagers, so the story in and of itself was totally different. So, I don't think it would have even made sense to be like, oh, try it this way, or this is,
Yeah. All right. Well, it definitely worked out. I love these too. Over the course of the seasons, you guys have gotten to mix it up with some deep cuts like Henry Irons and John Henry Irons, Bruno Mannheim, Tal Rowe, who knew we were going to care so much about that guy. But now you've also had some marquee pulls, you've had Bizarro, and now we've got a lot of Lex Luthor coming to town, correct? You're starting the season with the death of Superman?
Yeah.
How does this go?
Well, it's, since day one, the 80 years of Superman at this when we started, right? So there's so much mythology, and we just wanted to put our own stamp on it. So whatever the runs were that we were influenced by, we just sort of threw it into the Superman and Lois blender and tried to create our own version of it. So this season we did the exact same thing. I mean, it's, we have the benefit of having 3 seasons of a lot of hours of television. This couple, the kids, everybody else in Smallville. So emotionally, we could lean into this story in a way that maybe in a feature you can't. And I think, so that's what we relied on, and I think it's really powerful and moving, and I think the fans are gonna love it, really.
Oh yeah, there's a scene at the end of the first episode back that is, they showed a bit of it in the trailer, but there's a cutaway to some other witnesses of something, and you feel the loss of mankind's loss. It's really beautiful. The effects are insane. Cudlitz as Lex Luthor. Yes, Cudlitz, Michael Cudlitz. You're Superman and Loising Lex Luthor. He's not like he's not in the high tower. He's not, he's very, he's bald, but he's not power bald. How would you describe his rage?
I mean, his rage is justified in a lot of ways. That's what we found was interesting. It was an incident that happened where he was convicted for something he didn't do, although he had done all these other things. So we felt like that was a story engine that could go forever. Like a villain that's got a real beef is the best type of villain. And Todd and I, when we first talked about him, it was like a Cormac McCarthy character. We wanted that kind of the person that walks into the room and everybody is afraid of the moment that he walks into the room. And then when Michael Cudlitz signed up, we got that guy, and we're just like, we're gonna ride this all the way to the end. And I think the twists and turns of this season, and seeing, who he's paired up with and seeing what his plans are, it's really compelling television moving forward.
I need to also, probably we should address, there's been a lot of reports, there were a couple months ago, it was like all these cast members are exiting, cast budget, all this stuff, and that's not the case at all.
No.
All of those characters still exist and are still getting service stories.
Yeah, everybody that's been in the show is still in the show, and everybody has a storyline that wraps up by the end of the season. So it's
Great.
Yeah.
I'll say that these guys and the rest of the writers did a phenomenal job of taking those restrictions and I think actually using them as a strength and as a benefit for this season. I think in past episodes, there have been times where those characters, maybe everybody gets a little bit of a snack within the episode, and now I feel like when those characters show up, everybody gets a real meal, and it's like a really, really great moment with those characters, and so kudos to these guys and the writers for making that work in a really positive way.
All right, we are going to go to audience questions if you guys want to line up. I have no idea where they put the mics in this.
It did go by so fast. Since this is your final appearance as Superman and Lois, and you guys have all been together since day one, I would like you to please step out front and take a bow. You guys, don't be sad it's over. Be glad it happened because we get to have this show for the rest of our lives. Everybody, please give it up for Todd, Brent, Tyler, and Vinci. And for wonderful years of Superman and Lois. You guys have a great Saturday. Thank you for being here.